What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. So the teams have been announced for round 4 of the Rugby Championship. Starting off, we're going to go over the Wallabies versus the Springboks teams. As a preview, see what teams have been announced, who we think's a good pick, who we think's a bad kick, and then finally we'll give our score prediction at the end. As always, make sure you guys do drop down in the comments your thoughts on the teams. It's always nice to have a bit of a read through what other people think of the team. So starting off with this game, last week, of course, we did the match report for this game. This one went very differently to how I expected. We saw a great upturn in the Wallaby camp, going from that game they had against Argentina, where they just didn't look like they knew what was going on, to that game last week against South Africa, where they just looked in control. They just organised themselves, even with more penalties and 2 yellow cards, still coming away with a victory, just taking those 3 points when they could get them, not conceding many points even when they had those yellow cards. I was very impressed by them, even if there was a couple of questionable situations with Nick White's moustache on the go, but I'm sure a lot of people will have some things to talk about down in the comment section. So starting off with the team this week, we will start off with the Wallabies team, where we're going to see no changes. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just got to work on those penalty counts. So it's going to be a quick run through of the team here. So James Slipper, Falo Fainga, and Alan Alatoa. Now, the scrummaging last week was doing okay. There was definitely penalties coming at scrum time. It seemed to be more when it was South Africa's put in at the scrum. I'm sure they'll want to try and sort that situation out, not to give that many penalties away. I think it was like 16 penalties by the end of the game for Australia, so they'll want to keep that count down, especially with this week. There might be a bit of a switch up in the South African camp in terms of game plan. Maybe they'll go for those 3 points more rather than some of the driving more line out, so they can't really be afforded to be giving away those penalties in their own half. In the lock department, then Rory Arnold and Matt Phillip being a bit of a nuisance at the line-out last week, and just defensively, both these lads really getting stuck in. We saw a huge defensive effort from the Wallabies last week, so I think it's the right move just to keep them on this week. In the back row then, same back row as last week, Jed Holloway, Fraser McWright, and Rob Valentini. Now McWright got over for 2 tries, just being this superb player, waiting in the wings, just waiting for that offload pass, get himself over the try line a couple of times. There was even situations where they looked like Australia could have scored more tries, and he was on the wing again. He's just always waiting for that pass. A good supporting number 7, getting to learn a bit more about him as this tournament goes on. I did see a bit of highlights for him down at club level. He seems to like he plays alongside Lolosio, and he's certainly making ground in the club level. So I can see why they've sort of put them both in on this team at the same time. Speaking of which, the halfback partnership, Nick White and Lolosio together. I was actually quite impressed by Lolosio last week. I always quite enjoy seeing him in terms of his running play, attacking with the ball in hand. I think Lolosio is quite good in terms of a distributor. I still don't really get to see the same effort in terms of defence. There was a couple of tackles last week where he just sort of fell off the tackle. There was one he had coming on with the 2-on-1 with, I think it was Koch and Quagga Smith running at him, and he sort of ran up to one player, and then he saw the pass coming and he just like left it alone. You know, you've at least got to take the man out if you're going to engage in the tackle. You can't just bounce off as he gets the pass away. Expect someone else to get it. You've got to make the tackle. And then in terms of the kicking game, got it over the post. Absolutely fantastic in terms of kicking towards the post, but just not a lot from his kicking from hand game. It's something I would really like to see more. I don't know whether he's maybe not just that sort of fly half. Again, I'm still learning a lot about these Southern Hemisphere teams, but maybe some more grubber kicks, some chips over the top, some crossfield kicks. I don't know if that's his style, but I'd just like to see what potentially has that, because in terms of running play and distribution, picking the pass, he's doing really good. And Nick White survived his mustache wipe last week, so hopefully we're getting on. I'm already waiting for some people to put down in the comments about that situation. In the centre partnership then, Paisami and Ikitau. Now Paisami was making better ground for me last week than Ikitau. Ikitau's had a good couple of first games. A little bit quieter last week, was getting inroads a little bit, but it seemed to be basically Australia were going through their wingers, or they were just defending like crazy. So hopefully we get to see them engage a bit more. It's going to be interesting to see how this game switches up in terms of maybe going more down that forward route because of how much they launched the backs last week, but it worked. But you'd expect South Africa to be trying to counter that back situation a little bit more, so maybe going through the forwards this time is the better way to go. On to the back 3, we have Coriobetti, Tom Wright on that right wing, and then Reece Hodge. We didn't really get to see Reece Hodge's cannon leg come into use that much last week. Really looking forward to see if we can get some of those like 50, 60 metre kicks, get those 3 points over. Tom Wright had a better game at right wing last week than he did at fullback for the previous game, so I do like him there. And then Coriobetti, just the human missile going everywhere. Even if you agree or disagree with some of the tackles I've I have gone back and watched them now since we did that match report. So there's a couple of tackles in there that looked a little bit a little bit on the edge. I really like him as a player. Hopefully he stays away from the card territory, plays very much on the line. So I wouldn't be surprised maybe we see a yellow card or something coming in if he keeps it with that intensity. Maybe referees' decisions don't go his way. So just tone it down that extra 5%. Maybe just keep yourself under the illegal card level. But overall, yeah, the team's working, so no need to make any big switch-ups. In terms of the reserves, Paraki, Sio, and Taniela Tupou, who still not making big waves yet. I'm still waiting. It wasn't that long ago we heard what was it, like the show me the money. He wanted to be like the next £1 million contract sort of guy. I know I'm not really seeing it for him so far this tournament. I really expected him to be coming into these games and just scoring tries in the second half, be the big man on in that second half. But no, not really getting there for me. But I think he's still doing okay, but just not making the ground I wanted him to. For the rest of this 6-2 split, then we do have Darcy Swain, Rob Leota, and Pete Samu. Now, I think the forwards game worked really well for them. The defensive ability to have the 6-2 split last week just allowed them to keep up. Even if you were giving away lots of penalties and if there should have been penalty tries, what have you, having those replacement forwards did really help them just see that game out towards the end. Even though for all intents and purposes it did look like they were potentially going to be winning by a large majority last week, had it not been for Quagga Smith, they definitely needed those forwards to hold them on just in those dying few minutes just to keep themselves going. And then the rest of the replacements, then we have Jake Gordon and Andrew Kellaway, who, yeah, didn't get a great deal of game time last week, Andrew Kellaway, from what I remember. I'd like to see him get on a bit earlier. Get him on, bring some energy onto the field in that second half, just readapt some of those backs into the game, because it did feel like it was beginning to be a little bit more of a forwards game towards the end. So just, yeah, high energy. It would be nice to see them get in there. So on to the South Africa team then, who are making a lot of changes this week. Now, there was a couple of situations going on here midweek where they announced like Lukanya Am was out injured, Andre Pollard was out injured, Peter Steph du Toit is also gone. They've actually sent them home from the camp as well. Now, I didn't see these injuries when the game was going on. Take it with a pinch of salt, because while I'm watching these games, I'm also making notes and graphics for the match reports. There's a lot going on. I will miss things. People sometimes get really mad that I don't remember things happening a week ago while I've got like a bunch of other things to do. You guys get to watch the games. I get to make all these notes and stuff. I don't remember them picking up like massive injuries during the game. This might have been something, they take a knocks in the game. That's why they made those substitutions. And then later on, they've gone, oh, that is actually a much bigger injury than expected. So South Africa are being forced into some big changes. So they're trying to switch it up a lot, which I kind of like, actually, the way they've gone about it. So starting off with this front row, Stephen Kitchoff, Malcolm Marx, and Frans Malherbe. Now, Marx made a huge impact on the game last week. Dwebber wasn't doing well. Marx came on, settled the ship. Dwebber came back on after his injury. It immediately fell back down again. Marx came on in the second half, sorted it back out again. So I think this is the right move. Just start Malcolm Marx. He seems to be doing a great deal of work for them. The lock department remains the same. Evan Etzebeth and Lou Diaga. Yeah, they're doing okay at the minute there. They didn't score very highly in the fantasy, but I did think Lou Diaga was actually doing quite well last week. So it's just necessarily the Super Brew scoring, not that good. In the back row, we have Sia Khaleesi at the captain position, of course, as he is. Franco Mostert and Jasper Wiese comes in that 8 shirt. Now, I don't think Dwayne Vermeulen had a particularly bad game. I thought he was certainly getting involved with a lot of big hits and stuff. A lot of people very excited to see Jasper Wiese back in this side, so hopefully he can have a good game. Halfback partnership, we've got to switch up again here. Jaden Hendrikse and Damien Willemse. Now, Damien Willemse actually really impressed me when we saw him move to that fly half shirt before, when it wasn't really meant to be happening. He had to get switched into that position. I was really, really impressed with it. So I think he'll actually be okay here. And Hendrikse so far in this tournament's been good. He's been really good. He was good against the Wales team. He's been good going on now into this Rugby Championship. So I don't think this is a bad move. It's going to be fun to watch these two work together, but I'm actually kind of excited for this partnership. In the centre then, we have Damien Dialende and Jesse Creel moving into the outside centre. Now, apparently Jesse Creel, complete utility back, is having to play wing, centre, fullback. I've only ever really known Jesse Creel on the wing. So this is going to be something for me to look at. I'm sure some people can drop down in the comment section how good Jesse Creel actually is at centre. I've always known him as a winger, so going to be interesting to see how those two work together. I can see Jesse Creel trying to work outside. Damien Dialende is very good on your just smash and run through people. So Jesse Creel on the wing, maybe he can just sort of go around the outside some players. He might not be terrible in outside centre, to be fair. And then finally, in terms of the back three, we have Mapimpi, Cannon, Moody. who is a name I do not know at all. So really looking forward to see a new boy get on the pitch for me. And then finally, Willy Leroux moves into the fullback position, obviously because of Damien Willemse moving into the fly half position. So a lot of switch-ups in this starting 15, but then saying that last week it wasn't really working from them. Maybe some big switch-ups is what they need here. I'm hoping with the likes of Willemse moving into fly half and Hendrikse coming back in, you might see South Africa have more options. It was one of the things we were seeing last week is South Africa, if the kicking game, the box kick chase stopped working, it really looked quite flat. It really didn't look like they knew what the second option was, and then they just let Kwagga Smith do the rest. So I'm hoping with those two in, we'll see a bit more options. Maybe there'll be more set plays. Maybe we'll be seeing some sort of interlinking passes. Maybe we'll try and launch some backs rather than just these sort of standing start passes to first distributor and just see what they can do with it. I'm hoping this works a little bit better for them this week. In terms of the replacements then, we have Dion Fourie, Ox and Shea, and Trevor Nyakane. Now this is a good front row. I don't think it's as good as the front row that's starting, which I know typically that we like to see the South Africans bring on this bomb squad, this big set of lads in the second half. I actually think I prefer the starting front row to this, but I'm sure they'll do good work when they come on later in the game. In terms of the replacement forwards, though, some big interesting moves here. Kwagga Smith and Dwayne Vermeulen. Now, I know there is a couple of utility forwards in this South African team. I know that a couple of people can move to different positions. Maybe they'll try and move some people around, but to me, this is two back row replacements going to be coming in. I imagine Vermeulen will just come on as a direct switch for Wiese, and Kwagga Smith come on for Mostert. I can't remember if Mostert can also move to lock, or if Lou Diego moves to flanker from lock. There's a couple of switches around. I'm still not fully versed on it. I am trying to learn. There's a lot to take on board from a rugby championship that I've never covered before, so I am trying my best. But in terms of this 5-3 split bench again, I'm not sure this is the right way to go. I really think that South Africa should have gone back to that 6-2 split and used those forwards, try and meet Australia with the physicality, because they were doing well in scrums last week. The mauls were working okay for them. We had to see a couple of collapsed mauls from Australia, the only way to stop that South Africa one. So just bring on more forwards later on in the game. I think that might have been a better move. And then finally, the replacement backs, then Cobus Reinach coming in. It'd be nice to see him get on. I haven't seen him play for a long time, actually. Really looking forward to seeing him back in. Frans Steyn and Warwick Gallant. Looking forward to see these three come on. Frans Steyn did come on last week. It didn't make the most inroad, certainly was playing quite deep in that back position and trying to just sort of make some ground. He's not necessarily the fastest player in the world, but he's certainly a big dude. He was certainly smashing his way through, allowing people like Kwagga Smith maybe to have some room. But Cobus Reinach is an absolute monster in terms of the energy that he brings to the field. I think it was the World Cup where we saw him get a hat-trick of tries. He's a very, very fast number 9. So maybe later into the game, not a bad move to bring him on. I think maybe I would have kept Reinach and Steyn on the bench and maybe had another forward in there for me. Maybe a replacement lock or maybe another replacement forward of some form, just to try and bolster that set of forwards in case they begin to get tired towards the end and that defensive gaps begin to open up in the defensive line. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments of these teams. In terms of a score prediction, what do we think? We have like the old and successful Australian team, the new South African team. Where is this one going to go? In all honesty, I was so impressed by the step up we saw from Australia. All Australia need to do is cut out the penalties. If they can just cut down on the number of penalties, that game last week could have been sealed out even worse. That could have been a massive score bonus for them. So I'm actually going to say Australia this week. I'm going to hopefully believe they just worked on their discipline this week and will just try and concede less penalties. Don't give away those yellow cards. Don't give away as many penalties and just see that game out a little bit more. So I'm going to say Australia to win. I think it'll be in the middle ground of what the game last week could have been and what it ended up being. So I'm going to say Australia to win by 7. Let's go for a big call. Let's go for a big call because I'm going to be wrong anyway. That tends to be how it works. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Of course, remember to do your Super Brew teams before it gets to the weekend. There's not a very long turnaround time, so you guys will have to get on it pretty quick. I hope you've all enjoyed this one today, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.